Mom and dad needs your help. Can they stay home or they need to go to a facility? And if they do go to a facility, what kind of facility, what area, what's the size, and what's their budget? We're going to talk about that today.
Welcome to Senior Care Made Simple, an elder care podcast, your guide to navigating home health care with confidence. Hosted by Andrea Albertini, founder and CEO of Horizon Care Services, an industry leader in private duty home care in South Florida. To learn more, visit horizoncareservices.com.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to Senior Care Made Simple podcast. I am Andrea Albertini, your host, and my co-host is Lucy Torres. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Hi, good morning. Good afternoon.
Evening.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. So excited to be back.
So, Lucy, I had an email from a listener last week that was very confused when it's time for assisted living, when it's time for nursing home. And I know that the last episode, we talk a lot about heating costs on assisted living. But I want to talk to the listeners today and answer to this gentleman's question about the difference between nursing home and assisted living.
That's a great question. I often hear that there's a lot of confusion between what is assisted living, what's a nursing home. And then, I always found that there has always been this stigma with nursing home. I know with my mother personally, people feel when they hear nursing home is nursing home. So it's kind of like, it doesn't mean it's the end. Nursing home is more of your long-term care in the sense of the type of care that you need that's out of the scope of care of assisted living. So I guess we'll talk about the assisted living and the nursing home, the transition.
Well, see, years ago, there was no such a thing as assisted living. Mm-hmm. So as mom aging, we're going to put mom in a nursing home because she can no longer be alone. She can no longer care for herself. That have changed tremendously, right?
Yes, it has.
Because today, the only people who actually go to a nursing home are people who have not planned for long-term care. Really. They don't have the means. So most of the time, what happens is a patient goes into a hospital. They can no longer go home by themselves. They go into a short-term, what we call short-term rehab, skilled nursing facility for 20 days of rehab, right? So especially if they're Medicare. So 20 days. So after the 20 days, the family realizes they can no longer bring them home and they can't afford to pay for hourly and living care. That particular person does not qualify to be in assisted living. Because you got to remember, it's assisted living. It's not a nursing home. It's not a skilled care, right? Now, Horizon Care Services, private duty home care, or any other private duty home care in the country can provide that skilled care that your loved ones may need, okay? However, you have to be able to afford it. So what happens is, now they are going to apply for Medicaid. So if there is funding, right? So if the person has a lot of money, X amount of dollars, I don't know what the dollar amount is, which actually I am going to have someone in my show that is going to talk about Medicaid. So what happens is they apply for Medicaid. But first they have to spend down the money that person may have because the state takes everything you owe, most of it, right, to pay. And that's when eventually you become Medicaid. So that's really what they're using nursing homes now. Not a lot of people go into nursing home anymore that has the financial means to stay home with private duty.
A lot of it, too, is when deciding or when is the time for the nursing home, which is the long-term care side in the sense of their physical ailments. It becomes out of scope of care for assisted living at this time to take care of the parent if they were in assisted living at the time. And what that means is, if a person is requiring a two-person assist to help lift and put them into a bed, that's out of the scope of care for assisted living. Ideally in assisted living, as I mentioned in the other episode, is where they're assisting us to assist them. So they're able to bear weight. Let's say you're sitting in a chair, you're able to bear weight, you're able to pivot, and you're able to assist with the transferring as they're assisting to transfer you. When it comes a time where that's no longer doable for the person from a physical standpoint, then you're kind of looking at okay, it's a time for the nursing home. Also, they're no longer able to cut their own meals, and someone has to sit and cut the meals for them, or they are not able to respond to cue. So if I say, Mom, come on, it's time to get up. We're going to go take a shower. And you kind of get that stoic look, or they're not able to respond to you, or they're not understanding. That's something else. You're kind of out of now that scope of care, where in the long-term nursing home, from whatever the physical ailments are, whatever the cognitive concerns are, then they're more equipped from a skill standpoint to take care of your loved one. When you look at the finances, you're looking at, there are some people that have long-term care policies that will pay daily toward the cost of the nursing home, which is great. And then sometimes you have to out of pocket. Then there are people that are financially able to pay privately. Great. Then there are people that are not. We're looking at sometimes the indigent status. And for many different reasons. It wasn't just decisions that were made early on in life that weren't good. There were unfortunate situations that occurred that caused this person to now be financially indigent. There are communities they are able to accept Medicaid residents. So what that means, as you mentioned, we're doing spend downs and looking into what the finances are. And yes, the government is looking at how much money does this person have? Can they ideally afford to pay? And if so, for how long? And it's when we talk about spend down, it could be that most of the money was spent down, let's say, in assisted living. They had X amount of dollars. They were there for 3 or 4 years. They financially depleted what they have, their funds. And now they still can have. I mean, we have people that are, my grandmother's 100, passed away at 106 years old. So only God knows when is your time. So let's say this person possibly has X amount of years left, but they really need the care of the nursing home, but they can't afford care at home. So that's when someone would want to try to apply for these Medicaid services. But yes, the government is looking at, okay, where did all that money go? You have to be accountable for where did the money go, and do they meet the financial criteria now to be placed in this nursing home long term? So there are a lot of different things that are involved with nursing home. Nursing home, again, it's not just where when we talk about with my grandma, and I think culturally and the generations of, you're putting me in a nursing home, it's the end. It's not always that it's the end. I know people have lived in nursing home for years. It could be not just physical ailments, along with the financials, that they can't afford to be home, so they are Medicaid, as you mentioned, for a long term. But physically, you're going to require sometimes a Hoyer lift. You may have a loved one that is completely bedbound, and it's not easy. It could be the smallest person versus the heaviest person, but when someone is dead weight, how are you going to be able, unless you have someone physically helping you? That's another reason with them being, let's say if they are in a nursing home and they have Hoyer lifts, it's a 2-person to maneuver this Hoyer lift, because it can be unsafe. One person tries to do it and that person falls off, and you have bigger problems.
Oh, for sure.
So there are a lot of things involved with, when do we go to a nursing home? How do I know my loved one is ready for that nursing home? So it's basically, you want to keep them at home. We all do. We want to keep our loved one at home. It's wonderful that we can provide 24-hour cares. But if you got to the point that it's not feasible, or maybe it's just too much having that loved one with 24-hour care in your home, whatever the reason is, or financials come to the point that you need to apply for government assistance long term, then there are different reasons and there are options. But as I mentioned, it's not just going there and that's the end. It's kind of more that's involved to it.
Right. And what I suggest to everyone that I speak to, as your parent is aging in place, please see an attorney, see an elder law attorney.
I agree.
Make estate planning. You have to plan. You have to plan where, how much money mom has right now, and, how much is it going to cost for her long-term care? What are we doing? You have to have your plan. in place. It's easier for you to be able to do that. So it is very important. And actually, Lucy, I want to have an attorney come into our show and talk about that, because they'll be able to probably explain a lot more than we can.
Yes,
all the legal.
This is their expertise.
Yes,
They're well versed.
exactly.
This is what they do. But I love that you mentioned the elder law attorneys. I frequently hear myself saying, I suggest maybe you connect with an elder law attorney. Why? They come, they tell me, well, this is a situation. My parent had X amount of money and my sibling or someone took the money. And now we don't know how to get them approved for Medicaid, because the government, they are looking at every dollar and cent. If you can't afford to pay, why? And where did all this money go? An elder law attorney is really going to give you the best advice and guidance.
Right.
Because if you can't identify or you can't explain and you get denied, what happens to your loved one? So that's great to have an elder law, someone with the expertise involved that can help you through the process.
Right. And the other person that I like to have in our show as well is estate planning.
Yes, very important.
It is so important to have estate planning. So if any of you have any questions, if any of you would like us to do any topics that you may think about it, please email us in seniorcaremade-simple-podcast@gmail.com. We'll be able to answer your questions. We'll be able to talk about it in the show. And, again, we had a call last week, actually, that came in through Horizon Care Services, not Elder Care, that they were looking to place their mom in a nursing home.
So where do you turn?
But where do I turn?
Yes.
Where do I start? Right?
It's so confusing.
So it happened to be that this family has the meanings to keep mom at home on private duty.
Which is
so
wonderful.
we were able to do that. So now we are sending a nurse out to do an evaluation, do medication consolidation, and do personality match with the caregiver, which is really important. Something that we do well at Horizon Care Services. So now all this beautiful plan is in place. When mom has to take her medication, what does mom eat? We bring a dietitian in to go over all the dietaries.
A well-oiled machine.
It is.
Just,
it is.
get the system going. And
Exactly.
it goes back to us talking about respite care and the loved ones having a break and the loved one having someone that's going to be there to give them the socialization they so need and want.
So basically, let's go and talk about the cost for a nursing home. Nursing home is your most costly, right? If you have to pay for private duty, is the number 2 cost, right? That's your number 2 cost, which is still costly. Your assisted living is going to be cheaper for a little while until you age in place and needs all those extra care. And you spend down your money to be able to apply for Medicaid and move into a nursing home at that point because you already depleted your finances. So no matter each way you look at it, it's very costly to age in place. And we are living longer now, more and more. Thank God we are. And we're living healthier. There's so many wonderful things out there for us now. And that's why I'm saying it's so important to know and to plan for long-term care.
And it goes back to the conversation we had, one of the last shows about the hidden costs. Also know hidden costs that can come up in the nursing home. Because with the nursing home, there's a misunderstanding that, I'll just have Medicaid pay for it. Okay, you're going to have Medicaid pay for it, so who's going to pay for toiletries? And does this include a private room, or is your parent going to share a room? Because I would hear, I can't believe they have my parent with someone else, and that person makes noise at night, and I want them to be alone, and they have Medicaid. Well, typically when you have Medicaid, you're not going to have a private room, because you have to understand too that it's great the government is helping, but the government can't also afford to pay for a private room where versus the cost, that's possibly half of the cost of what it would be if someone was paying privately. We also have to consider that these communities, they have staff to pay. So the overhead it's quite costly. So it's kind of knowing in advance, what does this include? Is it going to be a private room, semi-private? What about toiletries? Who's going to pay for toiletries? What about hair salon when we're talking about, all
And
these
transportation.
and transportation? Yes. I had people calling me so upset. My mom was in this nursing home somewhere, and you believe I received all these bills for transportation. I'm like, what do you mean? Well, they said because she was in a wheelchair and they couldn't use their transportation, so they hired a higher transportation. I never knew this in advance. And now, in additional to what I'm paying for their room there, now I'm paying all this money for transportation. And that's something that should have been discussed prior. So when you're looking at placing someone in a nursing home, there are also other fees you need to consider and ask questions about.
No matter which way you look at it.
Yes.
It is costly. Lucy, thank you so much for coming and talking about all those wonderful things that we were able to share with our listeners today. And till next time, everybody, have a great day.
Senior Care Made Simple, an elder care podcast, has been brought to you by Horizon Care Services, your private duty choice in home care in South Florida. For more information on acquiring home care assistance, visit horizoncareservices.com.